What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Long time no see, right? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, this is United vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and we are back with a little bit of a bonus Manchester United news roundup. Wasn't totally unexpected or unplanned, as we knew that the club was having a staff-wide meeting today. Omar Berrada was present, our CEO, to kind of address and update and pretty much announce things. So we knew that there could be some interesting news today, but we are back just to look at what the club has had to say because Manchester United have released a statement following that meeting. Omar Berrada has had some things to say. And then we've got some input from some journalists and things like that, like such as Ben Jacobs and whatnot. So we are going to dive into all that real quick. It's not going to be super long. Of course, as long as you guys want to chat, we'll chat. But we're going to take a look at that just to see what you guys are up to and how you guys are feeling about everything. Because there's a lot of negativity. There is a lot of reaction. There is a lot of already heightened baseline of frustration and impatience and just anger and a need to kind of point that at something among this fan base. A lot of that does have to do with the results, the last 10 years, players, whatever, what have you. We'll talk about all of that. But hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Danny boy, good to see you again, man. Long time no see, right? We're gonna get stuck in a little bit because it's been a very interesting day so far. So the club has obviously, like I said, they had a meeting today. They addressed everything. Obviously, we already had some job cuts. There were some rumors coming out over the weekend and then early this morning that there were going to be more job cuts. And the club has released a statement regarding its what they're calling a transformation plan amidst this restructuring, basically, and this direction. And really, at the end of the day, what it is they're trying to get a hold of the finances because the way the club has been run since the Glazers took over has been an absolute shit show. It's like someone who's just had a credit card and just did whatever they wanted to without any thought whatsoever of what happens when that bill comes due, what happens when it's time to pay it off. They just kept kicking the can down the road. They didn't pay anything. Ineos came in, and now Ineos have to figure this out, and Ineos are having to make a lot of hard decisions. Now, I don't agree with all the decisions that Ineos have done, and I don't agree with some of them that we're going to discuss right now, but it is a bit of a shit show. So let's look right at what the club has had to say, shall we? Because it is embarrassing. Yeah, you guys get to follow along here as we read through this. So United announced transformation plan. Like we said here, United is to transform its corporate structure as part of a series of additional measures to improve the club's financial sustainability and enhance operational efficiency. Now, that term right there, the financial sustainability and operational efficiency, you guys remember we were talking about that earlier this morning, right? And that is literally almost verbatim from the owner's charter. In the Premier League owner's charter, there is a section in there that says that we recognize the value of each club has to broader community and the desire of each individual club to win and grow. We will run our club in an economically stable, sustainable, and socially responsible manner. That is almost verbatim what the club has included in its structure here. The transformation plan aims to return the club to profitability after 5 consecutive years of losses since 2019. Again, well before the Sir Jim and Ineos arrived. This will create a more solid financial platform from which the club can invest in men's and women's football success and improve infrastructure. Now, remember, women's football doesn't count against you as far as PSR goes. Neither does the academy. What does count against you is first team wages, staff hiring and firing, such as coaching staff, and then obviously managerial appointments. That counts against you. The women's team does not. So that's a reminder. That's a separate from the PSR stuff. But it does require money to strengthen the women's team. Now, the problem with the women's team, I saw some people on other channels kind of going in on Ineos over the weekend about the women's team, but and I don't agree with Ineos's when they kicked out the women from their facility to make room for the first team while they redid Carrington. But the women's team has been treated like shit since they got here, since the club started that. They like 4 or 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago when they started, they had to go walk to find a porta-john to go to the restroom because they had portable tents and stuff for that kind of stuff. The women's team has been treated like absolute garbage, and it's a freaking travesty. There's a reason Casey Stoney left. Moving on. As part of these measures, the club anticipates that approximately 150 to 200 jobs may be made redundant, subject to a consultation process with employees. These would be in addition to the 250 roles removed last year. So, not quite saying for sure that these jobs are going to be redundant, but it does sound like the club is anticipating that it's probably going to happen to some degree, that more people are going to lose their jobs. And like it says, subject to a consultation process with employees. So again, sort of like a review, looking at things, talking to the employees, talking to the heads of departments and all that stuff. It sounds like that's a big part of what's going to determine who stays, who goes, what jobs are here, what jobs don't. So let me go down here first. Omar Berrada, United CEO, said, "We have a responsibility to put United in the strongest position to win across our men's, women's, and academy teams. We are initiating a wide-ranging series of measures which will transform and renew the club. Unfortunately, this means announcing further potential redundancies, and we deeply regret the impact on those affected colleagues. However, these hard choices are necessary to put the club back on a stable financial footing." Berrada continues, "We have lost money for the past 5 consecutive years. This cannot continue. Our two main priorities as a club are delivering success on the pitch for our fans and improving our facilities. We cannot invest in these objectives if we are continuously losing money. At the end of this process, we will have more lean, agile, and financially sustainable football club while continuing to provide a world-class service to our valuable commercial partners. We will then be in a much stronger position to invest in football success and improve facilities for fans while remaining compliant with UEFA and Premier League regulations." I think that's pretty much it. Let me close that out here. All right, so that was the statement from the club. It's interesting. Like, this has always been a hard one. You guys know, if you've been watching the channel, I know probably some of you have been thinking that I'm an Ineos sympathizer. A lot of you maybe probably think I sit on the fence. I see every side of this, and I'm not saying that makes me all wise, all knowing. I'm trying to be objective, which I know is difficult, but I'm trying to be objective. Like, I understand the why is what I'm basically getting at. I understand the why all these things are happening. What I don't agree with, and I understand the what is happening, but I don't always agree with all of the what's. I don't agree necessarily with the staff cuts. Now, I understand why. Man City have less than 600 people on staff. We have had more than 1,300 for that. To me, there's something off there. I'm not saying that these people don't deserve jobs. I'm not saying I want people to get fired. You guys know I don't like people get fired. The problem is we shouldn't have probably had this bloated of a workforce in the first place. And now Ineos are having to make those hard choices. And now I don't like it. I wish it wasn't happening. I don't want it to happen. It's just part of what's going to happen, and it sucks. We're going to have to get used to this. No one likes this. It just is what it is. You're always going to look like the bad guy when you have to take away something that probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. It just is what it is. If you have parents who aren't on United front and one of them gives a child a toy, even though they probably shouldn't have a toy, the other parent's always going to look at the bad guy when they've got to come in and take the toy away. And Ineos are having to be that bad guy. And the Glazers are kind of getting out of this scot-free. What's Danny got to say? Let me see what you got, bud. "Not being able to sign players under 17 from South America or anywhere else is really hindering our options. It will be more expensive all over the Brexit rules right now." Yeah, there is a bit of an issue with the Brexit stuff. It does have to do with like the passport and whatnot, and it is a little bit more of an involved process. I know that for sure. It doesn't make it impossible. It's just, and wasn't Sir Jim in favor of Brexit? No, you forgive me. I'm not entirely fluent in the intricacies of Brexit. I'm not, I'm American, so there's not much involvement or really required interest from my end in that, outside of how it affects players, signing players, which sounds a bit selfish when you put it that way, but that's just the reality of the situation. So, so I know that you have to have different passports, and there will be different requirements, I believe. I just don't know off the top of my head what the intricacies of those are. Let me see. Let me look it up. Brexit rules, signing South American players. New signings will require a governing body endorsement, a GBE, from the FA before they can apply for their visa to enter the country. A similar system has been in place for players outside of the European Union who wanted to sign for UK clubs. Now it will apply to all non-UK footballers. But now there's other articles here that there are clubs that are starting to look at South America post-Brexit because there's lower transfer fees now, I guess. So there are some interesting articles out there, but because I guess now it's a little easier for these players, they just have to go through an extra step in the process. But Danny says, I think we move for more otherwise under 18s. Yeah, I mean, we got Diego Leon. We've been looking at a lot of these South American players, right? Mestre Antuono, we continue to be linked with as well. So there are players out there. Now, again, if someone has more knowledge on the Brexit rules in terms of how that relates to signing footballers, let me know. It sounds like maybe now it's a little easier with some of these other things, but I just don't know. Brexit's never really been on my radar, to be honest. So that was the club's statement. Now, again, we've had over 1,300 staff members for years, which is twice as much as what Man City have. Someone tell me how Man City can, like, with their facilities and everything, can get by with less than half of the staff that we've had. I'm not blaming the staff or anything, but again, it shows you the kind of just lavish, extravagant, kind of unchecked, reckless decision making that's been going on. And that's not the staff's fault. It isn't. They're just the ones now who are, and Ineos are going to be the bad guys here, and it's just the way it's going to be for a little while. Ben Jacobs had a little bit more to add to this as well. He said earlier today in a longer post, said, understand United will be moving some staff from Old Trafford to Carrington. So some of the staff are just going to be leaving Old Trafford. They're not going to be losing their jobs. Some of them are just going to be shifted to Carrington, which Carrington is being overhauled right now, and that's all from Sir Jim investment. He has invested 300 million of his own into the infrastructure, and he's paid off some of the interest payments and stuff as well. Like, it's not as if Sir Jim and Ineos aren't contributing. They are. They're just contributing. They're basically picking up the slack, carrying a lot of the dead weight right now that Glazers have just kicked the can down the road for years. But Jacob says some staff are going to be moving from Old Trafford to Carrington, shifting the club's focus towards football activities and creating more unified, streamlined workforce. A reduced presence will be maintained in London, but all the club's leadership will be Manchester-based, including Mark Armstrong, again, that CBO that we saw, we talked about last week, the chief business officer, who helped PSG get, more like 36 sponsors, all like most of whom were outside of France as well. So again, trying to get some revenue. Jacobs continues, Carrington catering arrangements unchanged for the remainder of this season, but when the main building reopens, there will be a differentiated food offering between staff and players. So there will be different food offerings. He says United are to end free lunches for staff at Old Trafford, saving over $1 million a year. So they will continue to get options at Carrington, but they're going to be ending free lunches at Old Trafford for that staff, which is just going to save about $1 million a year. So that one is again, going back to what I said earlier, that's one of those decisions where, like, I get the why and I get the what, but I don't necessarily like it. Because I do think just cutting free lunches, especially when they're only costing you $1 million a year, is a bit much, especially if you're cutting staff, especially if some of those staff are not even going to be at Old Trafford anymore. You're not going to be spending $1 million a year anymore. You're probably spending half that at that point. So I don't know, like, a lot of businesses that offer free lunches. Like, my mom, for instance, worked for one of the biggest automotive companies in the US as doing like administrative stuff. And she still had to either bring her lunch or pay for lunch in the cafeteria. And this is one of the biggest automotive industries in the US. So it's not unheard of for businesses to not just give their staff free lunches. You don't know if the staff is going to bring lunch. You don't know if the staff wants their own. So at some point you are going to be wasting money. But at the same time, $1 million a year is not that much. Like, what is $1 million a year really going to do? And like I said, with the people you're going to be moving to a different location and the people that you're cutting, you're not going to be spending $1 million a year. That has cost $1 million a year, but it doesn't have to continue to cost $1 million a year, if you get what I'm saying. Like, that's something that you probably could have. There's probably a lot of gray in there in between continuing to do it and just not doing it all. There's probably, like, let's find a cheaper way to do this. Let's assess how many people are going to be here, anticipate how many people are going to need lunches, maybe get give them some options and maybe find a cheaper way to do this. Like, it's just the way it is. Find less expensive options to do this. Because $1 million a year is literally just 3 weeks of paying Casemiro. Like, that's, to put it into perspective, like, that's literally less than a month of Casemiro's wages that you're spending on staff. Like, come on. Like, this is ridiculous. Jacob says the club will also pay variable bonuses at a reduced rate this season and then transition to a revised scheme in line with the club's football and financial performance. So again, if we're doing well and you're part of that, the bonuses will fall in line. And that pretty much goes in line with a lot of places. Now, again, this is one of those situations where you're always going to look like the bad guy when you're the one who's got to say we have to take this away. Whether it should have been there in the first place or whether it's in line with responsible business ownership, it's just the way it is, and it sucks, and I don't like it, and I wish it didn't have to happen. And I'm sure that I would want other alternatives, but this is where we're at right now. Jacob says the club's ongoing charitable donations will be focused on the Manchester United Foundation and the Manchester United Disabled Supporters Association, and the continued £40,000 a year to the Disabled Supporters Association will not be changed. So they will continue to contribute to both those. And again, people were freaking out a couple months ago about the cutting costs to the outside charity, the charity that wasn't associated directly with the club, forgetting that the club still has its United Foundation, it still has the Disabled Supporters Association, that they are still active. Well, the club contributes to a lot of charities. We've already did that video on that. That charity was a charity, but it was not well run. It had not reported its finances. Sir Jim came in and immediately started taking over the late payments and then basically said, you know what, you guys are not doing this job. We're not going to continue to contribute to an organization as poorly run as this. That's it. You guys can go ahead and watch that video if you want to. So I thought that was interesting from Ben Jacobs as well. I've always got time for Ben Jacobs. I got time for a lot of journalists. Honestly, right now, though, if anything is going to change, if there's any light at the end of this tunnel, it has to be the Glazers leaving. That's where it has to start. That's the only step that's going to matter, is getting them out of here. The only step that matters in getting to where we need to be is the step that the Glazers take out of the club. They are the sole reason that things have gotten to this point. If people want to blame anyone for why these people are losing their jobs, it's the Glazers. It is the Glazers. We are bleeding out, and everyone is pointing a finger at Ineos when they're the ones who are trying to staunch the bleeding. This is exactly what the Glazers wanted. Now, again, I'm not saying I agree with everything Ineos do. I'm not trying to be an Ineos sympathizer. I'm not trying to, stand in front of him. And this isn't, Ineos versus everybody. This is United versus anybody. I care about the club more than anything. But Ineos are making the hard decisions that the Glazers were too cowardly to make for years. Even I guarantee the Glazers knew all this stuff had to happen. They just didn't want to be the ones to do it. The negative stories from the media they only blame Ineos and Sir Jim. They don't mention the Glazers at all. And fair play, I did see Kava Sokohol on Sky. He was making sure today when all this came out, he made sure that people don't forget whose fault this is. He said the Glazers have cost United over £1 billion and are solely responsible for where we're at. And he said, remember, Sir Jim has already invested $300 million into the club, focusing heavily on Carrington while also paying interest on the debt, making overdue payments. Again, we have to always bring it back to why this is where we are, and that's the Glazers. We can't let that just fall under the guise of all this. The Glazers are responsible. Ineos, they've got blood on their hands too. They're not guiltless in all this. They're the ones who are just having to clean up all the mess right now. The Glazers were happy to run around with Daddy's credit card, standing on the shoulders of everybody who bled and sweat and died for this club over the years without a care for the consequences. They only took. They never gave at all. They couldn't even bother to show up other than when there was a photo op with a trophy. They don't know who people are at the club. Like, it's just, this is where we're at. Rob says, I worked at Tesco head office and the food in the canteen wasn't free there. Never worked anywhere that had free food. Yeah, I've literally never worked anywhere where I've got free food. So I don't know why everyone's freaking out about this personally. it is what it is. Now, where I don't agree necessarily is that what is the cost that it's going to save? Like, what is that actually going to do over the long run? Over 20 years, you're probably spending less than 20 million on food for that, especially with all the cuts and stuff. So it is what it is. But I mean, I get it. Again, it's always going to look bad when you have to take something away. It just is what it is, and unfortunately, that's what Ineos are doing. So, but no, appreciate that, Rob. Thanks for putting that out there. Like I said, my mom worked she still does. She works for one of the biggest automotive companies in the U.S. and her lunch ain't free. I've gone to have lunch with her several times over the years, just throughout the week, and we go to the cafeteria, and it ain't free. Let me tell you that. It is not free. It's good food. It's definitely not free. So, it just is what it is. So, little bit of news and stuff as the big news broke today. Danny says not only that, not 1 cent out of the money they made from the sale went back into the club. Scummiest lowlives I've ever come across. Yeah, I'm not saying if you see any of the Glazers on the street, kick one of them in the shin and run away. But I'm saying if you see one of them on the street, kick one of them in the shin and run away. I can't stand these guys. I mean, Avram looks like a freaking testicle with the glasses on. I can't be bothered to know what Joel even looks like because we see him even less. The guys they just hide. They only pop out. They're like rats. They only pop out when there's an opportunity for a photo op or to get some money, and that's it. They want to play like they're big businessmen, but they're not. They haven't done anything to earn what they have. It's all inherited from what their father did, whether that's their real estate crap or the club. Ugh, I could go on for a while for this. You guys get your thoughts in. We got real quick little transfer news too. This one was sent to me by Dylan. Big up Dylan if you're watching, by the way. You guys know Dylan. We chill with Dylan all the time. In some transfer news, Dylan did send me a link just before I went live to a recent report claiming that United are in for Ademola Lookman. He's apparently reportedly looking to leave Atalanta this summer. The 27-year-old grabbed a hat trick in the Europa League final. Obviously, remember that one. He has been solid for them for recent years, despite missing a pen recently in the Champions League, which drew some pretty open criticism from Gasperini. Lookman responded to that criticism, though, not only with a brace this weekend, though, but also he decided to respond online, which you all know I love it when players do that, right? There's nothing more mature than someone responding on social media rather than having a conversation with a person face to face. But regardless, the report comes from Team Talk and alleges that United are set to battle Newcastle, Inter, PSG, and Juventus for Lookman's signature. Atalanta reportedly want around £54 million. Problem is, the only source is Team Talk understands. I got to close these blinds a little bit because it's throwing off my light here. And you guys know how I feel about sources that say understands or according to sources. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying until I get some more substantial source, and I can't. I could literally say anything like, "Oh, United versus everybody understands," and I can just put whatever I want after that. And so it's interesting. Obviously, these journos and these sites and everything, these outlets are not going to reveal sources, especially if it's dressing room sources. But at the same time, you could literally say anything you want as long as you put according to sources after it. And this is why I say so much money is wasted on journalism degrees. But we'll see. If you, I know some of you have some strong opinions on Lookman. I think he suits the profile of what we need in terms of the Cunha, the Delap, behind the striker movement kind of thing. I think he suits the profile, and he is versatile, again, like a Cunha. He can play a 9 if you need him to. I just think, why get Lookman if you're going to get rid of Rashford, if the only difference is attitude? And like we just saw, Lookman decided to go on social media, which you guys know I don't like, even if you think you're right. Social media, to me, that's just not the way to do it. So, plus he's 27. I don't think that he does suit the experience, and I do think he is quality. I don't know. For some reason, I like Lookman. You guys know I like Lookman. He doesn't move me as much as other targets that we've been linked with or other players that we've discussed, if that makes sense. Rob says, "Are the mice still eating for free at Old Trafford?" Honestly, it wouldn't take much for any animal to get into Old Trafford if you guys have been there. I mean, it's completely open aside from actually getting into the stands. And even then, it's so old that it wouldn't take much to get in. Obviously, the protesters got in a couple of years ago without any issue. Old Trafford, Rob, has been bottom of the food hygiene ratings for multiple years. Now, remember when that article came out a couple months ago, like that we failed a food hygiene rating because someone found mice or something. I went ahead and did research and did a video basically responding, as we talked about that, saying like if you look at like before Ineos got here, we were still bottom of like food hygiene for the Premier League. Like we've been poor at that for years. It's just another thing that has gone neglected and unaddressed that Ineos have to come in and fix because of what happened before them. But yes, the mice are still eating for free. No one else is though, right? Uh, Dana says we're not looking at him. He's not. He's not worth 30. Never mind. Are you saying we're not looking at him because we're not, or just because you're trying to manifest that as truth? And he said he's not worth 30. Never mind. Danny, you have a. I'm curious what your aversion is to Lookman because you've had some very. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just curious where this strong aversion to Ademola Lookman comes from because ever since I remember mentioning him a while back, and I remember you being just adamantly against Lookman. Let me know why. Why isn't he worth that much? I wouldn't spend 54 million on Ademola Lookman. I think that this is probably the last contract he's going to get unless he goes to like a Saudi club or something. But I don't know. Let me know. That's pretty much it, though. Like I said, not a whole lot, but it was some interesting news coming out of the club today. Obviously, they released that statement, and then we had some Ben Jacobs stuff pop up. So, what's Danny say? Seen him play 2 teams in the Prem, and he was terrible. Yeah, I mean, Gyökeres wasn't that great before he went to Coventry, and even then, he was already 25 when he started getting good. So maybe it was like the wrong team at the wrong time. I don't know. I don't remember a ton of Lookman when he was in the Prem personally. But what he's doing at Atalanta is, I mean, African Football of the Year, obviously hat trick in the Europa League. Maybe he's just another one who's a little bit of a late bloomer and he just needed the right club at the right time to kind of help him kind of get to that place. I don't know. We've seen it happen before. So in any case, real quick one today, but I did want to make sure I stopped by and got your guys' thoughts. Danny says, too old, that price. Yeah, unfortunately, you are going to end up paying that much for good players, even if they are, that 26, 27. Even how much did Bayern pay for Harry Kane? I mean, I'm not saying that Lookman is as good as Harry Kane before anybody clips me up, but yeah, at that age, that's probably where you're going to spend the most money. Rob says, at this point, I'll take anyone you can find the back of the net. Yeah. I think that he is probably would do that Garnacho job, but he's a little older, so he'd probably just the savviness, the movement, the timing, all that stuff, the quality, the decision making is probably just there. But we'll see. Like I said, that's going to be it for me, you guys. Just want to make sure I stop by real quick to get your guys' thoughts on that. So let me know your thoughts on the club statement. Let me know your thoughts on some of these potential job cuts, because again, nothing is certain yet. The club anticipates it, but they are going to be consulting with staff before they make any decisions. Lunches are still fine. Some of that will change. Like we've talked about, free lunches almost never happen at any company. So it's not as if the club is just going from a very, very high, generous place to a kind of getting to where normal business operates kind of place, which again, the optics are only ever bad when you have to do that. There's no good PR to come out of that. And it's just, that is what it is. So, but take it easy, you guys. Thank you for stopping by. Let me know your thoughts on all that. Let me know your thoughts on Lookman. We know Danny's thoughts, but I appreciate everybody coming by. Take it easy. Enjoy your day. I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to come by for the Ipswich preview. We've got some news on that, potential injury updates for both sides. So be back tomorrow. Take it easy. I will talk to you tomorrow. Robert says, so true. Yeah. Cool, guys. Take it easy. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will talk to you later. Bye.